My guest today is Chief Peter Volkman of the Chatham Police Department. Chief, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
First things first, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're a very busy guy. We've been trying to do this for a while. Let's start out with Peter Volkman. Tell me how it was growing up.
I grew up a regular, good life. Everything was going well. I was into sports. I was getting good grades. And it was probably right around high school that peer pressure for drinking alcohol started, and it went into the college years, and it kept going and getting worse. It didn't get better, and there were times when I tried to stop and say I'll never drink again, and that didn't happen.
Those old foxhole prayers. I'll never drink again.
Exactly. And then during that time, I was a first responder. I started riding ambulances at 16 years old. And
wow.
I became traumatized over and over and over again from incidents that I experienced. Continued with ambulances, became a volunteer firefighter, became a police officer at 22, and struggled. The way to deal with the pain of trauma, psychological trauma, was through alcohol. And I was a functional alcoholic, and I was a closet drinker. No one really knew, and I binged a lot. And so during the time, my wife, at the time when we were dating, realized when I get drunk, I get out of control, and she couldn't call the police. She was afraid to call. In a loving way.
You were the police.
I was at the time, absolutely. So who do you call when you're scared?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after my second binge she realized that I really had a problem. In a loving way, she set boundaries for herself and wanting still to be in a relationship. And I didn't hit a rock bottom. I call it a turnaround moment. I didn't lose everything. But it was that turnaround moment that someone gave me clarity for a moment and gave me hope and support. And my whole family supported me. My last drink was September 2nd, 1995.
Wow, congratulations.
Recovery works. Wasn't always smooth and easy, but it does work. And I was in the depths of darkness of addiction. And I know what that's like, where I hated myself, I hated the addiction. I wanted to stop, but I couldn't until I said the magical 3 words, I need help. And once I did, I was amazed at the people I didn't even know, counselors and all kinds of people were there to help me and on my road to recovery.
So that wasn't just the end for you. You then bring your recovery into your career in law enforcement, in which now I would say you are, if not the one of the most supportive law enforcement officers I have ever met when it comes to recovery, and not just lock them up. And maybe that's because you're a person in long-term recovery, but you truly understand that we as recovering addicts and alcoholics, self-included, need more help than just handcuffs.
Yeah, I've seen for 30 years. I was a DARE officer, use that piece of preventive education. I've watched, been through the crack age, been through angel dust age as an officer. All that time, heroin was there.
Hasn't gone anywhere.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. And as we look to see where we came from, and right now we're exactly where we should be with this heroin crisis, based upon all the things that happened. And really, if you look at recovery in the 50s, it really started. And famous people came out of the shadows, actors and famous people. It was seen as a medical model base. And it really wasn't until we saw Richard Nixon coin the term war on drugs. And that word, war on drugs, for local police was we're at war. And who we're at war with? The people who use drugs. And that's where you started seeing the militarization of policing. SWAT started up in the 70s. And then Nancy Reagan came along and coined the term "just say no."
Oh, if that was only that easy, Peter, we would have gotten
if someone just taught me to just say no,
we would have gotten sober so much quicker, you and me.
Exactly.
No.
But our communities bought into that.
Yeah.
And so to this day, you'll see someone struggling with their substance use disorder, and you'll see people like, well, they put it in their bodies by themselves. They should just say no. Is really
Why can't you just stop?
that's just say no. It's back to that. So I always say when I give talks to people, how many of us have attempted to lose weight and we didn't, and we failed? We should just say
Still
no.
am.
Right? Exactly.
Just giving up.
But we can make it that simple. Weight loss is not easy for a lot of folks.
Right.
And so we put it in that perspective. Then what happened during that time was pain became the fifth vital sign in the medical field. And so whenever you go to the doctor now, they always ask you on a pain of 0 to 10, where's your pain?
Yeah, and they have those little pictures.
For the kids that don't know that.
Nobody's ever a 5.
No.
Ever.
Nope.
I think I might have even said 11 or 12 a couple times.
I've had kidney stones. I've actually said that 11 or 12. But then that took us to pain has to be at 0 at all times. And we became a 0 pain type of community. And so I remember when I was a kid and I got my first filling, the dentist was done and he said, your tooth's going to hurt for a couple days.
Yeah.
That was it.
Here's a toothbrush and some toothpaste.
And your tooth's going to hurt.
Now, hey, take some hydrocodone with you.
Pain to zero. And we became intolerant of pain. Then during that time, with pain and coming, that's when Oxycontin and a lot of the opioid medications came out, and they actually said they were non-addictive in commercials. They actually publicly said they were non-addictive. So doctors started, based upon the research of the companies, the pharmaceutical companies saying they're non-addictive, started handing out pain pills. And then when that happened, we started clamping down as time went on, and doctors are not dispensing like they used to, and they're cutting patients off. Well, the heroin cartels, I think, had that vision of this happening, and they dropped the price of heroin dramatically. So now the price of pain pill went up on the market, and the price of heroin dropped in half, and so people gravitated towards heroin. What I find today with the overdoses, it's not just heroin, because we always had heroin. It's heroin and fentanyl that's killing people. Heroin and some additive. Heroin, and benzodiazepines, and different things. So it's the and that's killing people now, and because of the carfentanil and the fentanyl, it's just killing people. It's just killing people. And I've never been in a public health crisis like this. And I've been seeing it, and it's been devastating to me. I know people who have died, actually know people in my county who have died. I know families whose loved ones have died. It's horrific. And where I am in Columbia County is no different than all across the country. You are seeing this all across the country.
So you decided to do something about it.
Yeah, at that point I was going to a lot of meetings. We were having a lot of community meetings, and I felt, in my perception, it was we were at the 9/11 syndrome, because everybody remembers where they were on 9/11 and that first day.
Yep.
And everybody wanted to do something, but they didn't know what to do on 9/11, and they just sat at home going, "I want to do something."
Glued to the TV.
Yeah, and I don't know what to do. I just feel this need, and I feel communities are that way now. They want to do something. They want to make this better, but they just don't know what to do. And I was going from community meetings to community meetings, and I was sensing that, and I was getting very frustrated, like many communities are. And so I just at that time, I decided to research and see if there's any type of alternative way to deal with the public health crisis for policing besides arresting. We cannot arrest our way out of this public health crisis. And historically, with drugs, communities have placed the responsibility on police to deal with it. And we were failing miserably. So that's when I looked, and I found the PARI model out of Gloucester, Massachusetts, where a police chief made a decision. If you walk in voluntarily and say, "I need help," he will do everything to get you in a treatment. And that kind of interests me, so I went and visited the police department and the executives there. And their first year, they had over 400 people in that city walk in voluntarily. But what really caught me as a executive officer in a police department was they found that petty crime dropped 30% in that city the first year. And then they also found out, when they followed it up, half the people who they placed remained clean and sober the first year, 50%.
Wow.
The national average is 3 to 5% your first year. And they found out, and they asked the people who were clean and sober, what was it that kept you clean and sober? And all of them said, when I last said goodbye to the officer looked me in the eye and shook my hand and said two things. You're a good person and you can do this. That's all it took. But it makes sense. We represent the community. You're a good person and you can do this, is the support from the community as they go into treatment, many of them for the first time. So I brought it back, but I had a lot of worry because my police department is not a full-time police department.
You have 22 part-time officers, and your annual budget is a whopping. And the first time I heard this, you were speaking, and I was like, Did he seriously just say his annual budget is $157,000
to run a police department, to run a part-time police department? Yes. So I had no funding, really. I had no resources because most officers are working a full-time job.
Yeah.
And then they serve their community part-time in policing, and they made that decision to serve their community. And I really wasn't sure what I was doing in a sense. So at least I took the standards from the PARI, the Gloucester, and I found out 22 other police departments in New York State were starting it up with me at the same time. And there's almost 500 police departments in New York State. Wow. So just 22, and I was the 22nd as I looked up. So I followed those standards, the national standards, and tailored everything and for a way for a person to walk in, and we will try to find a treatment center.
They getting arrested?
No, they were not getting arrested. They were walking in, and officers, we had to get the board, the village board, to understand, and they were very supportive with this plan. The village officers, we had a training about it and talked about it, and they were behind it. And the community of Chatham was behind it because something needed to be done. And too many people were dying, too many overdoses were happening. And so we took a chance, not knowing. My biggest fear was like 100 people were going to show up the first day, but it didn't happen. We were hoping for 30, because who would walk in a police station, if you think about it logically, and say, I'm a heroin addict and I need help? I
got to tell you, Peter, when I was using, I've walked into many a police station. But yes, my hands were not in front of me like they are now. But I didn't live in Chatham.
Right. And it was, we didn't think the community, no one would come to us.
Yeah, right.
It just, everything we were doing and every decision that was made within the police department by the officers was, it's not going to work.
Right.
It's not going to. There is no way someone's going to walk in, and how can a part-time police department with a limited budget be able to handle this, and how are you going to find beds?
In 1.2 square miles?
Our village is 1.2 square miles, and we have about 1,800 residents. That is it. It is the little village in Columbia County. And so we decided to do it. Something had to be done.
Yeah. What do you got to lose?
Right. And also we figured that if we became successful, then the county would come on board, and other counties and other police agencies will see the value. So we were kind of the beta test to see if it could work. And so it took about 3 weeks for a first person to walk through, and they couldn't find a bed. They've been trying, and they were desperate to find a bed. They were ready. They were ready to begin their recovery. And then we found out the Massachusetts policies do not apply in New York State. Anybody on Medicaid in New York State cannot go out of state. We did not know that. They have to stay in state for treatment. So at that point, we had to throw all our policies out and then really rewrite the book through a learning curve about that. And treatment centers that we have worked with have been so supportive and helpful. And so with the hopes of 30 in 1 year, actually turned to 130 people have walked in the first year.
Wow.
Asking for help. Some came from 8 different counties, and they just couldn't find a bed.
Word is out.
Absolutely. The word is out everywhere is to call Chatham, that they'll find a bed. And everyone, we found a bed with insurance approval. Every single person who
130 people.
130 people.
You're telling me you have a 100% success rate.
100% success rate in finding beds.
How long does it take?
Finding a bed has taken as long, the shortest was about 10 minutes.
Wow.
To find a bed, and the longest to get someone into treatment was 12 days. And the reason being is this person had Medicare, which is the federal insurance, and there was a problem with their insurance from something that happened in the 80s, and he was flagged, and we fixed it the first day. It took hours to fix it, and then the federal government will not electronically change it for 10 days. So with the help of Columbia County DSS, we were able to place him with housing and food, and we kept in touch with him for 10 days.
You didn't give up on him?
Didn't give up.
On average, if you look at those 130 people that you got into treatment successfully, if you were going to look at an average of how long it took each person, what's the average?
That's about half the people we find that day.
Wow. Same day service.
Same day service. They will be on the road within probably 3 hours.
On the road?
Towards treatment, driving towards treatment. We found that about 70% of the people had no ride. So we've taken it upon ourselves to transport someone to treatment.
In a police car?
In a police car.
And they still get in a police car?
They sit, right, but
we're going
they
to
sit in the
treatment.
back. Right. And what's neat about that is we kind of saw that problem.
Yeah.
So we have community volunteer angels who come and ride with them, because we found when there's a civilian in the car, and not just police, it lowers the anxiety rates for somebody.
I bet.
So that's where the community really came forward and helped us out as we did that. So it's pretty neat to see.
That's absolutely amazing.
Everyone's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Community of 1,800 people, and you're doing stuff that other communities, other agencies have not been able to figure out how to do.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple reasons. Is that we're police, and we're not allowed to just say, I got my work day's ended, see you tomorrow. We don't stop. So there have been insurance problems with folks. They haven't had insurance. They come to us. They have medical problems. The hardest part we have is that for an opioid addiction, you have to be in withdrawal to be approved by insurance, which means you can't use for about 24 hours. That is very hard for somebody.
Yeah.
Very hard. And so they'll come in, and people come in, and usually I call it, they take the last hurrah and they get high. You know, they're ready, they get high or they get drunk, and they come in, and then we have to tell them, we'll see you in 20 to 24 hours. And so that's our hard part, because people don't always come back.
Right.
They were ready at that moment. And the best way that someone told me was withdrawal is like having the flu on steroids, like 10 to 15 times worse than anybody who's in bed with the flu. And it's the anxiety in as much as the physical withdrawal, but the psychological anxiety is horrific. And there were people that would stay in our police station for hours. And it was hard to watch somebody get worse and start to suffer and suffer and suffer. So that also keeps people from getting the same day service, is that it's just insurance driven in the medical field that for the approval.
So this sounds like at times it could be a lot of man hours for the police department. And you said, you know, we just don't leave. So with a budget of $157,000, how does that go into like overtime cost, or, you know, how's your department?
Here's the amazing thing that's happened. Talk about other miracles. We have received over $6,000 in donations from the community to support and continue our police service. Community members, faith-based communities are just coming forward and donating to the police department. Not even from the village of Chatham. Faith-based communities outside the village of Chatham. And they keep saying, keep going, keep going. We also have officers who have volunteered their time because they knew it would break our budget. And so they don't put in for overtime, or they'll come in on their own time to transport somebody when we have that. So it's really amazing to see the compassion.
Yeah.
And what's different about us is when somebody walks in, we treat them like any other call for service, a priority. And so when someone walks in, we don't give up on that priority. If there's something big going on in Chatham, we tell them they have to sit in the lobby while we go answer a call. But it's just a call for service. If somebody walked in saying, hey, I'm having chest pains, we assess and refer. we give them the proper referral. Hey, I'm a heroin addict, we assess and refer, but we've learned the dysfunctional system through experience. So that's how we can get beds so quick now, because we know what to ask and we know how they can get approved. Because a lot of times we've learned in the beginning, when they ask how much are you using, a heroin addict's answer for the insurance approval is, not a lot.
Well, going back to the law enforcement, it's like when you pull somebody over and you said, how much have you drank? 2.
Right, exactly. And so now we have a pre-screen with them through our mobile crisis, because our mobile crisis pre-screens, and they help them say, you got to say the exact number. Be truthful. No matter how much you use, because that's going to help you get treatment.
Right.
Not a lot, you're not going to get insurance approval. So we've learned, so we've even had our mobile crisis of Columbia Greene County do a phone screen before we do anything else, just to make sure that mental illness isn't a part of it, and that they approve us to go through our program. Because some people are severely mentally ill that are coming in, they're using the illicit drugs because they stopped their medication. So we've made referrals back to mobile crisis, and we've had people who actually we've had to call an ambulance because they were high and they were overdosing, and that happens. We knew that was going to happen, and that was part of our officer training of what to do next.
Can you share with us some of the stories of some of the people that have come in?
Sure. Some poignant stories that I'll never forget. I remember we helped a young woman. And she came in and said, I need help. And we found her a treatment bed. And then she turned to me and said, Chief, can you go with me to tell my mom? She doesn't know.
Wow.
So we had, and before I go to treatment, I have to do that. And she's going to be devastated. And that was one of the hardest calls, because think about this. You see your daughter walking towards the house with a police officer next to your daughter. It's not a good thing. You know that right away. So she was very upset seeing that, and then we had to sit down and she had to tell her, and it was a very emotional moment that I'll never forget. I'll never forget that. And to this day, they both keep in touch with me, and
Wow.
this young woman's still clean and sober,
Good
and it's a
stuff.
great stuff. So it's just the stories of just people coming in, and then people saying, please don't tell anybody that we're here, because I have a business, and if they hear my child is a heroin
It's a small
addict,
community.
right, that I'll lose business if they hear that. So we get that. So they're the ones that are amazing, and the people who relapse come back to us. That's the ultimate, when they are so comfortable to come back and admit, I need help again.
And they feel safe.
And
they don't feel judged.
Yep. To watch a parent who comes in, and one parent, they were trying for a month to find a bed because they didn't know how to navigate the system.
Right.
When we found a bed in a couple hours, for that mom to break down crying and hugging us, they all hug us, the families, and say thank you. So it's an amazing process of human kindness and compassion. And so our tagline is, we've come up with is, we don't give up hope, we give out hope. And that's what Chatham Cares for You, and that's what we call it now, Chatham Cares for You. You can go on our Facebook page, Chatham Cares, the number 4 and a letter U, because every person, I do a story on their recovery and how it began.
I see the updates. It's amazing. I can get on Facebook in the morning, then I can get on Facebook in the afternoon or before I go to bed at night, and
there it is.
There it is.
So many people, and they've shared and shared and shared, and that's how families are calling us too. They didn't know about Chatham Cares for You.
Word of mouth.
Yep, and the power of social media is absolutely amazing. So,
Why isn't every police department in the state and the country doing this?
I think there's a fear. I think there's a fear that it'll overwhelm police resources and financially with that. But it goes back to the war on drugs, and it goes back to just say no. And so people just have to look at it as a medical condition. But we've done that to mentally ill. We've institutionalized them, and we're institutionalizing those with substance use disorder.
So you think there's still departments that are actually fighting this war on drugs?
Yes, I think the mentality when you've been told as a cop for 10, 15, 20 years, that's a hard shift. And it's a hard shift for many people to see, okay, let's take it different. We can't stop the supply, because as soon as you make a major drug bust, I guarantee you the pipeline will open within 24 hours.
Somebody's waiting.
as long as there's a supply in America, well, as long as there's a demand, there's a supply. It's economics 101. So I took the viewpoint of, well, if we really can't stop the supply, let's try to lower the demand. And that's where my thought was, economics 101 in this.
Great. Where do you see your program 6 months from now?
At this point, I don't know, because we should have been overwhelmed. We should have just gone under. And by the grace of God, I think, and my prayers every night, asking for help. So I don't know where we're going to go. All I know is a lot more people are going to die. And we're trying our best in our little village. And one person at a time is a miracle and a success story. I'm hoping we'll be able to expand, and I'm hoping it's going to go really further in other police departments. We're getting interest from other police departments, which is a great thing from around the state. And so they're starting to see that, hey, let's try to lower the demand. So we'll see. Let's see.
Chief, this is your camera. If you were going to say something, a message to someone that's still out there sick and suffering, not only as a person in long-term recovery yourself, but also, the chief of police of a little small police department in Columbia County, New York, who are helping so many people get the help that they need, what would be the message that you say to them?
What I would say to them is, there's a place you can go for hope. There's a place that there is no stigma. Come in voluntarily. We will help you find a bed. We will give you honor and dignity. There's hope in recovery. I'm a testament to that. And never give up. When you're ready, when you know you've had that turnaround moment, whatever that turnaround moment is, there is a place to go. You can follow us on our Facebook page. You can see that we're for real. And you can call our helpline through Columbia Pathways to Recovery. And talk to somebody first, but talk, reach out, say the magical words, I need help, and your life can change forever like me. I'm a police chief now. Who would have ever thought that happened? So it can happen.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much for having me here. It was a pleasure.